Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization, choosing diet goals video number 3, understanding the pace of change. The pace of change depends on the degree of the intervention. That is, the harder, in a sense, you diet, the more rapidly your body can transform. Deeper interventions get you to your goal with a higher speed and probability of success, which is to say, like, if you really need to weigh 130 by October 15th for a wedding, if your intervention is deep, which is to say, like, you eat exactly what the coach tells you to eat at every time and you never fail and you're ready to really cut into those calories and really put out the cardio, then you can have a much higher probability of achieving your goal, even if that goal is pretty intense and pretty close up. That does not mean that everyone needs the gnarliest intervention. And as a matter of fact, most people will not benefit from the gnarliest intervention because they will just flub out and fail and cheat and or just quit. And like, everyone has a breaking point. Everybody has a breaking point. I reached mine at my last contest prep. Oh, they didn't know it. I succeeded in losing muscle and not getting very lean. That, my bitterness aside, most folks much more benefit from a moderate intervention that has a high degree of success. But more so, folks just need to know what they can expect. Your clients need to know what they can expect. If they want really exotic shit to happen, they're going to have to know and understand. They're going to have to nod to you that they understand, like, this is going to be moving heaven and earth, versus something much more moderate. We're like, yeah, like, we can do this, no problem. Usually starting with a low scope intervention and working up later is totally cool. I mean, later in future diets. So if they want to lose 15 pounds in 3 months, you talk them down to 10. 10 is accomplished. And the next time they go on a 3-month diet, maybe they could lose another 10 or maybe 12 or something like that. Maybe a little bit more intense. But really, once you have something that works, just don't make it more intense. Because they're at a low percent body fat, it's more intense even though it's absolutely the same amount. 10 pounds is easier to lose from 220 to 210 than it is from 210 to 200, and much easier than it is from 200 to 190, etc. If they give you a distinct medium-term goal, you have to do 2 things. You have to calculate on your end, is this very likely or probable or possible? And 2, how much of an intervention is it going to require me to communicate that the client has to agree to in order for it to be the best chance of success? Because we basically say, like, look, if you want to weigh this by this date, it is possible, but this is what it's going to take. And they might be like, holy shit, I have to eat how many calories on average a day? And you're like, yeah, but you're going to just be kind of starving all the time. Get your Ozempic prescription because this is going to be fucked up. They're like, oh, great, I'll just take that. You're like, yes, you'll have no energy. And they're like, oh, man. So it's a real thing. You have to be honest with your clients. Now, when I say this, I'm not mentioning something very important. And what I'm not mentioning here is, but how do you know as a coach what is realistic and what it's not? Don't worry, I just have actual numbers for you on the next slides. For fat loss, this is speaking in grand averages, with about 6 months total of commitment to the diet. That doesn't mean it's a fat loss the entire time. This bakes in maintenance phases. It actually even bakes in poorly executed rebounds that they gain a little bit too much weight after a diet. All that's baked in. So we're talking about averages in the real world, not ideals. The average client can expect, if they're diligent, an 8% weight loss in 6 months. Usually clients think they can lose 20% in 6 months, and some of them do. We take them as RP clients as our best. We put them on Instagram, and we contribute, in some sense, to the cultural milieu of this is just what you can expect. But remember, we share our best like everyone does. And the average is very different from the best. And maybe some of your clients can become the best and they have what it takes. But if you give them the averages, they're going to be much more thankful that you're giving them a realistic take. Any faster than this is possible. It is possible to lose 10, 12, 14% of total body weight in 6 months of fat loss and maintenance phases and active rests and all that stuff, but it's unlikely. 8%, remember that, 8% for 6 months. And by remember, I mean you have these slides forever, so you don't have to remember. But remember at least now in medium-term memory, whatever that means, because we have other stuff to say. That's fat loss. What about muscle gain? In the same 6 months of relatively diligent application of diet, an average client can expect about a 2% increase in lean body mass, in muscle mass. First of all, that is 4 times lower than fat loss. So automatically you know a big grand truth that your clients have to know as well, at least implicitly and sometimes explicitly if they push on it a lot. Muscle gain occurs way, way, way slower than fat loss. And some people just don't know that. Like they'll say like, oh, like I weighed 140 last year and I weigh 140 this year, but I think I lost a ton of fat because I think I just gained muscle. And you're like, yeah, they don't look like you lost a ton of fat. You maybe don't want to say it that way, but you kind of know like, no, you didn't actually gain 18 pounds of muscle since last year. It's not that likely. Now, for beginners, they can actually expect in 6 months to gain like 6% lean body mass, which is huge. For advanced, more like 1%, sometimes less. Huge difference there. Again, if someone's been diligently training for 10 years, very different prognosis for their muscle gain in the future than someone who's been diligently training for 10 days. This makes in mini cut phases and everything. 6 months of diligent, well-periodized dieting, which we're going to learn about later in this whole shebang. Any faster than this is definitely possible in some cases, but unlikely. Nothing you want to put a stake into and really say, yeah, this is what you're going to get. For both muscle gain and fat loss, it's, as a coach to a client, infinitely better to good God, I almost said that wrong. I always get this wrong for some reason. To not overpromise and underdeliver, but rather to underpromise and overdeliver. You can use these numbers, that 6% and the 8% for 6 months for fat loss and the roughly 2% of lean body mass gains over 6 months for muscle gain. They are grotesque averages. A lot of people is not going to apply to. What you want to do is promise nothing. You can say, we're going to embark on this journey. And I think it's possible for you to lose something like 8% of your body weight and keep it off after 6 months. Maybe. But I can't promise that. We just have to actually employ diet and see. That's totally cool. You don't want to promise distinct numbers because they just might not achieve them. You can be a little bit more confident with weight loss numbers because weight loss is almost exclusively a calorie control problem. If they can just stick to the diet and not eat their hand, well, actually, technically, if they eat their hand, they still accomplish this, keeping it all in the system, they'll lose the weight that they want to lose. Muscle gain is a different story. Weight gain, you just eat up to it, but how much of that is going to be muscle? Muscle gain relies on genetic factors and training variables, and even if you have the training sorted, you don't have the genetics sorted. So it's calories in, calories out is not good enough. Weight loss is much easier to promise than muscle gain. So personally, as a coach myself, weight loss, I'll say, look, we're taking a shot at 15 pounds over the next 6 months. For real weight loss, you're going to keep off for forever. There's a chance you'll lose 10. There's a chance you'll lose 20. 15 is our goal. What do you say? And they say, that sounds great. And remember, I'm under-promising and I plan to over-deliver. So I know based on their responses already, they're probably going to lose like 18 to 20 pounds. And then so when they hit 15, they're like, holy fuck, you're a goddamn miracle worker. We fucking did it. We're even better. Amazing. You can set any goal you like that's just a little bit outside the reach. And no matter what it is, it's disappointing. If you're used to making $1 million a year and you plan on making $1 million next year, but you make $800,000, there's a chance you're going to be disappointed. Who the fuck kind of crazy asshole gets disappointed making $800,000 a year? It happens all the time. Because no matter what goal you actually achieve, whatever you set, you're going to standard that to it. If you set a slightly more conservative goal and you beat it, you're going to be pretty pumped. So your job as a coach to make yourself look like a professional and to not cause undue emotional disturbance, or you call it suffering, just like a bad time for your clients having failed to achieve their goals, you're going to want to give them goals that are your interpretation of not as impressive. And these are already baked into that. So you can use these percentages and usually they'll do you really right. You can overpromise and it gets them super excited. But when you underdeliver, it's going to be bad news for the client, bad news for you getting hired again, and real shit news for you getting recommended. But if you underpromise and you overdeliver, it's happiness everywhere. Obviously, don't do it at an extreme. Be like, I can get you 2 pounds lost in 6 months. Because I'll be like, fuck that. I can do better anywhere else. But if you say, look, I can, maybe 15 pounds over the next 6 months for real, weight you can keep off forever. They're going to be like, okay, deal. Then they lose 15, amazing. They lose 20, amazing. You could get it done. Then it's realistic. Then it works. And then everyone's happy. So know these numbers. And also, a lot of you folks have been coaching for forever already, continue to update your priors. Continue to update your understanding of what is likely and what is not. And you can even tell from body types eventually. You can tell from past experiences with dieting. You can tell from attitudes. Like here's an example really quick. The client comes to you and they're like, look, I want to lose XYZ weight by 6 months from now. And like you run the numbers in your head. You're like, that's possible. That's actually quite reasonable. And they're like, but here's the thing. I don't want to change my diet. I really love the way I diet. I don't want to fucking touch it. I'm willing to listen to your input on diet, but like I'm probably not going to make a whole lot of changes. And my foods have to be organic. They have to be this. They have to be that. All the way. I'm also going like 5 vacations during that time. I tend to blow up a little bit of vacation. I'd love for like some text message tips. You're like, already this is fucking gone. Gone. They're not going to succeed. I just wouldn't bet on it because they've just set stumbling blocks for them from the beginning. It's like you're in a sprint race set up against another person and you watch them throw like spike tacks in front of only their lane. And you're like, guess I'm winning that one. The buzzer hits or whatever, the gun goes off and they're like, they fall over, they're holding their leg. Like, yes, but you threw those tacks there. What are you doing? People will do that all the time in diets. It's your job to assess and be like, hey, look, granted that this is the case, let's aim for a pretty conservative goal of maybe a 5% loss over this whole time. And they might be like, look, I can do better. And then you can be like, hey, listen, like, this is what I can give you, I think. And if you can get better somewhere else, I would love for you to take that option because then you're going to get the deal that you want. Most people won't be that difficult. There's some folks out there that they're going to want a result, but they're not going to want to put in the effort or have all sorts of limitations. When you realize that, you can buffer the estimate up and down. All right. That's all I have for this time. See you guys next time.